Welcome to Stories That Stay, how stories of identity shape us. This is a podcast where healing happens at the intersection of art, science, and storytelling. I'm Shamm Petros, a therapist, learning strategist, refugee, and reluctant creative.
And I'm Dwight Dunston, a facilitator, educator, artist, and proud uncle. Stories That Stay podcast is a project of Lion Story. Our guest today is Brian Jordan. Brian Caselli Jordan is an educator, singer-songwriter, and facilitator who wishes he was some kind of 2025 Mr. Rogers. Brian has taught for the last 17 years, with 12 of those years in kindergarten or preschool, and holds a Master in Education in Early Childhood Education from Temple University. Brian helped co-found City Love in 2014 and has had the honor of co-leading school assemblies and workshops about race, equity, and belonging with tens of thousands of students and teachers across the country. Brian teaches a first and second grade split class at the Philadelphia school, where he has taught since 2012, and is a proud father of a wonderful 2-year-old. Brian has also been a trainer with Lion Story since 2019, working with schools and organizations nationwide.
Now, before we start, for all of our listeners, our guests, my co-hosts, I just want to arrive with today's guests and their story and prepare ourselves for the feelings, emotions, and truths that will emerge. And in order to do that, we want to take a moment to settle in together. So wherever you are, however you're listening, whether you're walking, driving, or resting somewhere sedentary, we invite you to take a few breaths just for yourself. You can practice in many different ways, but we'll give you a musical reprieve here. And maybe I just ask you to take 3 deep, intentional breaths, our audience and our guests at this moment. And we invite you to continue to inhale and exhale deeply as you need throughout this podcast. And to remember to always keep breathing.
Bri.
Tanzarino, Shamm, hey.
Welcome to the show. How are you arriving today, Brian?
Thank you so much for having me. I am arriving delightfully tired, after a day well spent teaching. These first few weeks, we don't actually get any breaks in the day because you're on lunch duty every day and stuff. So I'm a little tired, but it's such good days with these kiddos and learning so much from them, and just feeling grateful, tired and grateful.
That's real.
Yeah, how are you both feeling?
Similar, but heavy on the gratitude and excitement at this moment.
Yeah.
Yes. And +2 to both of y'all. Just so grateful. These days feel long and full and all that they hold. But moments like this, I really just cherish, getting to slow down, be with friends, be with folks who inspire me and do this work. So very, very, very much cherishing this moment. And Brian, we ask our guest when they first arrive and also at the end of the episode, the same question. And that is just on a scale from 1 to 10, as you move into sharing your story, how are you feeling about sharing your story today? With 1 being not stressed at all, relaxed, 10 being like, whoa, it's stressful. I'm having lots of feels about it. Where would you put yourself on that scale here at the top of our time together?
Ooh, I'm like somewhere around an 8 because you two are both heroes for me. I'm like, oh man, I hope I don't mess this up. I hope I don't say some crazy things about my loved ones unintentionally. There's a lot of things in there. Hope I'm not dad brain and teacher brain, mixing everything up. but I'm really excited too. Excited at an 8 and stressed at an 8. It's those often go together for me, but I'm going to try and channel that stress into the excitement.
Okay, holding that. Thank you for sharing, Brian, and know that Shamm and I will be here to hold whatever comes up for you, and holding the excitement and some of the stress here at the top of our time together. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to my dear friend and co-host to take us through the next part of our time together. Over to you, Shamm.
Thank you, Dwight. And we're very excited to have you, Brian, particularly. As you mentioned, you've been a trainer with us since 2019, and you have had copious practice sharing the story, writing about it, reflecting on it. And as most people, is iterative each time, right?
Yes.
And now there's also a slight iteration to our prompt. So with that, I invite you to reflect and share on this prompt of what was the earliest memory of difference that you recall.
Thank you so much. In hearing this prompt, I thought of a really specific moment, and again, that I have gotten to reflect on a fair amount over the years and keep on peeling away the layers, but specifically thinking about racial difference and just this was perhaps the first racial encounter that I can remember. And I think that, it really sticks with me in a lot of ways, and it's something I'm still trying to grasp. But I'm going to talk a lot about my grandpa today. And I loved him and admired him so much that I named my firstborn son after him with my partner. She graciously agreed. He was a mean chef. I remember eating pasta fazool and the smell of tomato sauce that had been cooking all day, wafting through the house. I remember his dark olive skin, strong cologne, gold chains, the button like, halfway down pretty much. And I try not to go that far, but I still keep the top button open in honor of him and the Italian. My grandpa called me the prince when I was little, and he convincingly would let us win at rummy every time. He always drew a pigeon pooping on our birthday cards. He was kind of a goofy guy. I think I get some of my goofiness from him, and my students and my son can attest that I'm a very goofy person. And now I remember some of his catchphrases like, "You giving me agita," and "Ma coste pazz," and a lot of things in Italian dialect. And so he really became synonymous with Italy and Italian for me, and I ended up deciding to study Italian in school. But I really admired him in so many ways as a person. He and my Grammy were married for over 50 years, and he beautifully took care of her for many years while she suffered with Parkinson's disease. In his late 70s, he played jazz trumpet in a duo called Gene and Al with his friend at senior homes, and he'd say, "Oh, we're going to go play for the old people." He would scandalize the Italian-speaking residents when he would sing like Santa Lucia, but he would fill in some swear words because by that point he had forgotten a lot of the Italian, and the Italian cuss words still sound beautiful. And he started the tradition of music in my family, and music is so important to my life. And he taught himself trumpet and helped his family get through the Great Depression playing in different jazz bands around Chicago. He was a jack of all trades. He hustled to make ends meet as a butcher and a barber, a musician, a handyman. He eventually learned how to fix watches and become a jeweler, but worked tenaciously, 12, 14-hour days most of his life. He was a hero for me and a joyful person and a really community-minded person. He was always bringing people together with his ways. And his family came over from Potenza, Italy, in the south of Italy, like the Arch of the Heel, basically. And they came over right before he was born. He had some siblings who were born in Italy, and he grew up in Cicero on the south side of Chicago. So, I've tried to keep learning more about him and his life and my Grammy and just the whole family to understand more about my roots. This person that I admire so much, I remember so vividly coming home from third grade one day and coming into the kitchen, and my grandpa and my Grammy and two of their dear friends were sitting around the table, and my mom was over in the kitchen getting something ready to bring over to them. And I overheard a conversation, and I heard my grandpa and his friend use the N-word to talk about some people. And that was, I think, the first time I had heard someone I love use that word. And I don't know what my full understanding of the context was at that time, but I know I was really hurt and confused to see this towering hero and just a person who embodied love and joy and kindness and generosity in my life using this word. And, I think about sitting around that same table with some of my classmates who were Black and, as little kids, like first and second, third graders, coming over there and my mom like doting on us and like bringing some, tasty snacks over for us. And at that same table, my grandpa saying those words and his friend. I think it breaks my heart to think about that. And I think as I try to understand more about it over time and more about him, it puzzles me, and all I can really come away from it with is the grief of what this man took on, kind of some of the poison he took into him from being in this place where there's so much racism just in the air, and then specifically anti-Black racism in the air. And, understanding more about history over time, seeing that where he grew up was blocks away from redlined areas on the south side of Chicago where great migration, people coming up from the South, Black folks coming up from the South, couldn't move out of there. And probably a lot of the Italians were concentrated in Cicero because similarly, they weren't encouraged to move into a lot of these other neighborhoods. And while he was probably being called a guinea and a wetback and a wop and all kinds of stuff and a Guido, for him to turn around and project that same hatred with far deeper and more incredibly violent and harmful roots, it's so sad to me. I also think about the fact that his life was so touched by jazz music. It literally helped him help his family survive the Great Depression, that his life was touched by this form of art that comes out of Black culture. And it's a liberatory art form. It's about getting free. It's about improvising, being spontaneous. And he taught himself trumpet because he was so touched by that music and played it. And for him to be able to turn around and say that kind of thing about people in the community that gave him that gift, gift that freed his voice, his artistic voice, his heart in so many regards, and literally helped him support his loved ones, So there's a lot of layers there. There's a lot of layers there. And the other layer that comes to it is I think about my grandpa working so hard, and, I think about the American dream, bootstrap myth, all of that. Like he did it. He rose from like low-income family to being like middle class by the end of his life, maybe even upper middle class for all I know. And there's another James Baldwin quote. He says, Robert Kennedy made the prediction that in 40 years an African American might become president. From the point of view of the man in the Harlem barbershop, Bobby Kennedy only got here yesterday, and now he is already on his way to the presidency. We were here for 400 years, and now he tells us that maybe in 40 years, if you're good, we may let you become president. And I think that way about my family and just kind of the socioeconomic trajectory in my family. What does that mean? That my grandpa grew up 5 blocks from people whose families have been here for centuries, working ceaselessly, and in many cases had probably far, far less to show for it, for the work they did in their lifetimes than my grandfather did. So it's a lot of complicated feelings and a lot to reckon with. And I had conversations with my mom about that, much later on as I like trying to excavate the story, and she doesn't recall it, but it's seared in my memory. And I remember talking with her right after the fact that day, and she was saying, like, oh, they just don't understand, or it's just different. They don't mean it like that. Trying to kind of excuse it away. Understandably, that's her father, and she knew that was probably a crushing thing for me to see. But there's no excuse for it. You can understand it and say, okay, that's part of the context of the times. That's the racism he was steeped in growing up by being in this country, and perhaps some of the like self-loathing turned in another direction if you soak it up with the anti-Italian sentiment. It's easy to say, well, someone else is worse than me or something like that, but it's a lot to have a hero and know that was inside of him, and have all these beautiful, beautiful aspects of a person, but know that was also inside of them. That's my beloved grandfather.
Mm. Thank you, Brian.
Yeah, thank you for listening.
Have you been able to breathe?
Let me take a little breath now. That's good. I've been holding it in.
Everyone, let's take a moment for a couple breaths. I do want to ask you a particular set of questions that you're familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
With the ultimate goal of really being present with the story, all the complexities you lifted, all the dualities, all the what we call both ands. And you do a great job, and I think a lot of people do this when they look at stories from their childhood, is mapping out the social, political, all the factors that would that will lead to the context for this encounter, for this moment. And we believe all that is true. But also your emotions give you really great data. So, we're going to just really zoom in with you for the next few moments. The story is already so vivid, from sights to smells to sounds. I feel like it's so tangible to us, but to make even more
Thank you.
metabolic for you, and generative. So with that said, I want to ask our first question. As you reflect on this prompt, the story you just shared, what are all the emotions you're experiencing, and can you rank them for us, 1 to 10?
Thank you. A lot of grief, and I've sat with this grief for a long, kind of sat with it, looking at a lot of different angles. So I think it's not at the same level of potency that it was earlier on. And but I think, grief at a 7 or 8, thinking about this, and when I'm really in the moment, even more with it. I brought his picture over with me.
Please.
He told me when I was a little guy, and I've got a picture of my son here next to me too. And that really, telling this story and telling you that I also named my son after a man that said that, I don't know if complicated is a feeling, but it feels complicated at 10.
Yeah.
It feels like a comeback line at a 10. To have someone who was so beautiful. My grandfather passed away when I was in 6th grade and left such an indelible mark on my life in that short amount of time relative to the rest of my life, It literally shifted the trajectory of my life linguistically, musically, culinarily, all the things. So many gifts that he brought to my life and so many examples. And I wanna be married for 50 years. I wanna work through it. I wanna care for someone who needs my support, So I like gratitude to him at a 10. And I think I'm a little angry at him, but mostly angry that this country did that to him in a way, because unfortunately, you don't need to seek that out here. But hopeful at a 10 because, as I said about the comeback line, my son is named after him. And I'm raising my son. He's blessed to have so many incredible heroes in his life, in his day-to-day life, family members, aunts, uncles who are Black that he loves and admires, and from week 2 in his life. And so that feels very redemptive too. It feels very redemptive.
It definitely feels like the seesaw. Even for our listeners, like Brian's face is like a beautiful, positive emotion. We see the smile. We're all smiling on here, and then the heaviness of what follows. There's a lot of both ends. And if I could recap it for you, Brian, so you have it with you, you're feeling grief at a 7 or an 8 for what was true. That that there's this part of your grandfather that was true. You feel complicatedness at a 10. You feel like you also got a comeback at a 10 for your child to share the same name, and for you to be able to name your child after your grandfather, but also raise them in a certain way. And then gratitude at a 10. And also anger. There's a little bit of anger, if you want to scale for us, a little anger at your grandfather. And you do a great job of caring for him. That is not lost on us, and holding him accountable. But yeah, when you mention the anger, you're quick to mention it and not rank it.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of the number. I mean, the words for it are like, how could you say that? I don't know what the number is. It's up there.
It's somewhere.
It's up there. Is it
It's somewhere?
8, 9, 10.
8, 9, 10. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's coming out my eyes. I feel I'm kind of hunched in. Yeah, I think my stomach is tense. My shoulders are tight.
Eyes, stomachs, shoulders.
Yeah.
And what about your voice?
Yeah, it chokes me up. Cuts off my voice.
Yeah. But when you said that line, when you said, how could you say this?
Yeah.
Your voice didn't feel shaky at all, sturdy and projected. Is that how it felt to you? Or did it feel differently in your body?
I guess that did feel stronger. It's clear, like, what do you say to call someone that you love in like that? To hold them to the self that they show you in every other regard. So
Beautiful. Beautiful. And the feelings in your stomach and your shoulder, those were tight, right? It was a
tight.
tightness.
Yeah.
And you said a hunching over, you feel that in yourself?
Yeah, I was kind of like leaning in, kind of, yeah, a little bit stooped over, stooped in.
Souped up.
Any other places that you're just locating some of these emotions, the complication, the grief, that comeback line, the gratitude, the anger, the hopefulness, any somatic noticings, physiological noticings about where these feelings live?
Thank you. Yeah, I think just like a general heaviness throughout my body, and yeah, I think trying to hold on to those breaths and stay in the center somewhere, trying to get myself regrounded, trying to notice my feet.
Hmm.
But yeah, just a tight heaviness on my chest as I'm breathing, heaviness on my shoulders as I'm sitting.
Hmm. Tightness, heaviness.
Images. There's so many images, but there are certain scenes. But yeah, are there any other images coming to mind as you describe that memory? And even with the self-talk, if she said something to him, inviting all of that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I can just see that table so vividly. I can see the chairs. I can see the way where the windows were and how the light would come in. I can see my Grammy and Grandpa and their two friends sitting there, and kind of I'm also seeing like the silence of the two women juxtaposed with the two men having this conversation, and the silence of my mother off to the side. And I think, as I'm realizing, like, I'm also wishing she would have said something
Hmm.
as the other beloved, deeply admired, heroic grown up in my life in that room. I'm wishing that my Grammy would have said something. Or did everyone agree? I know my mom didn't agree with that, but she didn't say anything. And
Hmm.
so, yeah, seeing that picture, I'm also seeing my grandpa walking around the house playing trumpet and just being this, just this like embodiment of music in my life. And
Hmm.
just that complexity, and I can imagine myself as a grown man sitting down with him and asking him after the fact, like, how could you say that? Why would you say that? And just with the presence of mind and the strength and stature that I have as a grown man now, compared to being a third grader
Hmm.
and having this experience. Yeah, I feel a lot of these images swimming and seeing my son's face, seeing him cooking with me in a way that would make my grandpa so proud, and seeing him doing music with me in a way that would make my grandpa so proud.
Hmm.
Seeing my partner who I intend to spend my life with, and seeing my Grammy and grandpa proud of that. So it's all the things swirling around together. And there's no throwing out your beloved grandfather.
Hmm.
And also I'm not comfortable just excusing it away either.
Hmm.
You can't tell me like, well, white people just didn't know back then. No, white people knew from the beginning.
Yeah.
So that's
I-
that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, yeah, you described that as a mirror,
Uh-huh.
and it's powerful because the words, it just feels like a different degree of what you wish you said to your grandfather, right? Like,
Yes.
why? But why do you feel a need to say this when
Right.
we're feet away from, people, we love people that have endured the harm of this world.
Yes.
You work with people. What's that why that makes you feel like it's okay? And what's beautiful in this practice is I feel like I already heard, I mean, you're just speaking, but you've already offered a way in which like a 6-year-old can say it, a 12-year-old can say it, right?
Hmm.
Like, why would you say that? Like, you're a great man. That is not something a great man would say, right? Something a
Yeah.
14-year-old could say, something you could have said as an adult. I wonder what it would sound like in part Italian, or if one of
Yeah.
his friends said it.
Yeah.
Because quite often we're fighting, in these stories, like, what do I, if I could have did it again, or if I could rewrite that. And
Yeah.
life's
Hmm.
we're blessed. Life gives us opportunity to rewrite these stories. Like, you are a father now, right?
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So I just wanted to highlight the tonality and like the energy behind what even that ballroom quote and what you're offering, right?
Hmm.
And there's so many ways. I think a lot of us, all across the board, all the stories we've heard, Dwight, Matt, and Brian, no matter who, whenever we go to that first memory, all of us fight to show love and care and protection to the people in our stories. And so many people are scared to even do this work because they don't want to say bad things or share an ugly truth.
Mhm.
Um, but that is key to this work. And you've demonstrated like, and I will reference a Brian Stevenson quote, like, we are all more than our worst act.
That's
And,
beautiful.
you know, but how do we hold ourselves accountable? How is that part of the
Yes.
equation and not ignored? It's not despite our worst act.
Right.
Because of it, that now we have the blueprint to do better.
Yes. Yes.
But I want to hand it off to White also to make sure we're caring for you. Cause yeah, we don't want to just open up the story, just open it up, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh,
And
thank you for all that.
mhm. And for our listeners to be under the weight of that truth of both loving those people in our lineage for all they gave to us, all that they taught us, and also to hold them accountable can cause us to have a lot of internal strife, internal conflict. And so much of what I see you grappling with here, Brian, in real time is those two truths, right? Right?
Mhm.
Having a sense in your own lifetime, the ways that you're thinking about raising your son, your child, the offspring of this grandparent, right? In a different
Yes.
way. You really, you said, I'm raising him in beloved community, right?
Yeah.
This young person had Black folks in their lives from 2 weeks old, right? Who loved them, who cared for them, who,
Mhm.
you know, um, and just just honoring all of the complexity and the tragedy and triumph, as Dr. Stevenson says, of
Mhm.
the story. And our listeners
Yeah.
may be feeling those same things. So I want to just invite us to just take a breath in and out, another breath in and out, and just really invite folks to continue to just notice what's happening in your physical body as Brian's story moves within you. Brian, as you sit with some new information about how the story is with you. In our work, we say just that act of noticing and making space, as Shamm prompted you at the beginning, right? Is all of that data that comes up from our storytelling is, we believe, is healing for us.
Yes.
And so, two questions here at the close. Your story is beautiful. You start at one place with your grandfather and all of the richness and complexity of that. And I can't help but think about this other big part of your story was about your fatherhood, your own parenting, right? Your own helping to
Mhm.
raise the next generation. And just thinking about the whole of your story, I'm thinking if there was a hashtag or a headline or a title of a story that comes to mind that would encapsulate everything that the story holds. We're
Mm.
putting you on the spot a little bit, but curious if anything just comes to mind for you.
Not this time.
Not this time.
I don't know. There's a few coming, Yeah, I gotta sit with that a little more. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's that idea we're gonna be healed this time. You know,
Mm,
we're gonna
Mm-hmm.
be healed this time. We're gonna fully be loved this time.
mm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And holding that, allow an invitation to allow that story to continue to evolve, or just sit with that for the time being. Maybe that's the title for the time being, and just notice,
Mhm.
even as you
Yeah.
title it that, just any feelings, thoughts come up. But that's beautiful. I know for me, when I heard that, I felt a release, there was something you were calling in. I felt sort of a release, relaxed at a 7
Hmm.
in my chest.
Thank you.
And yeah, thank you. Thank you. Our last question is just, we started by asking you how you were feeling, sharing your story on a scale from 1 to 10. What's your stress level at right now after sharing your story? If you could put it on a scale from 1 to 10, where would it be?
I probably still up there because now, yeah, probably around a 7 or 8 because then you just kind of replaying everything. And I think kind of talking about a family member in a way that doesn't paint them in kind of a whitewashed positive light. I'm kind of like, did I piss off someone in my family? Did I betray my family in some way? And then there's the other part of me saying like, no, that's how you honor that person and love them, is to be honest, to be true, and to heal through what wasn't yet healed, and to hold the complexities of that person in their fullness, and keep elevating the beauties in yourself that they passed on to you.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I've got to keep marinating on it. What does it mean to tell this story about my family? I've told it. I've never told it in a medium where I don't know who it's going to reach and where it's going to go, and if someone's going to have the context of me being in front of them or spending a workshop with me, and that the story stays, the lessons leave. Like this story leaves with people. this story goes where someone's got a phone or a computer. And so I got to think about what does that mean? And that's a little stressful, but important. Yeah, it sounds far away.
I'm honored to witness the evolution of your story across time because there's now element of redemption. Your father, new father, in the last couple of years, and I see this. Years of doing this work. People share their stories, but the stories evolve. The stories evolve with time, and the gift of life. I don't know how else to put it. The opportunity to rewrite it actively.
Yes.
And all the people of your family now and the family in the future that would be proud of you for sharing the truth. So thank you
Thank you.
deeply. And
Yeah.
being honest about the stress, I think that is the bravest part. It's stressful at 8 and you still did it. And it's still and it's still supportive of you and others.
Thank
So
you.
thank you, Brian.
Yes.
Thank you for having me. And honored to be in the space. And thanks for all your gracious questions and listening.
Yes. Once again, thank you, Brian, for your courageous storytelling, and for you and our listeners. We want to close with one more breath together. So wherever you are, we ask you to inhale and exhale. As we've experienced this work, we know it's emotional, and for us, in terms of healing and recognizing the stories that stay with us, having the story get emotional is the point. We use that data to help craft our next story. The story doesn't stop here. It continues and goes on and gets passed down through generations.
Thank you so much for tuning into Stories That Stay, how stories of identity shape us. This podcast is a project of Lion Story. To learn more about Lion Story and our work, visit us at lionstory.org. This episode was produced and edited by Peterson Toscano. Music during our mindful moments come from Dwight Dunston. For our listeners, know that we are here to help you build the real courage and the practical language and skills to navigate this discomfort with clarity and compassion, starting with yourself. If you found any value in today's episode, please consider leaving a review, subscribing, or sharing this with someone who needs it. Your support helps us grow our healing community with practical learning resources and training, opportunities for individuals and communities that need these tools and skills the most.
Until next time, keep listening, keep learning, and keep telling your story. And remember that you are your most important listener.
Together at Lion Story, an organization grounded in over 35 years of research in psychology, ritual socialization, and human development, Dwight and I have spent the last 5 years training thousands of people to confront identity-based stress and transform their stories into tools for healing and change. At home, in the office, online, but most importantly, within themselves.
Each episode will offer practical tools and reflective questions to help you navigate identity and difference with more clarity and less fear. Whether you're an educator, organizer, artist, or someone simply trying to make sense of what you've been feeling in the world around you, you're in the right place.
We'll explore stories of resilience, rupture, and repair, guided by people who have found language for their truths. Fair warning, it will get emotional, but that, for us, is the point. Research shows that when we feel and name our emotions clearly, we create the conditions for healing, so that we are better equipped to meet whatever comes next with clarity, connection, and courage.